Today's guest has interviewed mobsters like Sammy the Bull, rock stars like Snider of Twisted Sister. He's even interviewed Pablo Escobar's wife. You know that gentleman as Tom Vecchia of Armchair MBA, coming up next on The Burndown.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Burndown. If you're watching, you can clearly see we have a guest in the studio, and that man is Tom Vecchia, entrepreneur, online digital marketer, owner of X Factor Media, MBA Armchair Podcast with some crazy guests like Sammy the Bull Gravano. He just told us Pablo Escobar's wife.
Yep.
And even guys like Snider. And then he just recently acquired Mobsters Inc. on YouTube.
Yes.
So that man is Tom Vecchia. Tom, thanks for coming in the Burndown studio.
Pleasure to be here, my friends. Thank you so much.
Let's go.
Only took 2.5 hours of traffic, but it's worth it just to have a burn down and a little Widow Jane with some gentlemen.
Let's go, man. Let's go. We're excited to have you. You are officially our second guest in the studio.
Yeah, so we're going to be drinking Widow Jane, age 10 years. This was basically... Went to Tom, said, hey, look into the cabinet. What do you want? He goes, let's do Widow Jane, say less. And, of course, blueprints.
Blueprints all around for the boys, baby.
Beautiful.
So let's...
Ready to spark?
We could spark. Tom, I know you need it. You need it. We've been sitting chilling. You definitely need it because you've been driving 2.5 hours to get here.
Yep.
Yeah, he texted us, said, I need a cigar and a drink. And we said, we got you.
I'm happy you guys are not snobs saying we have to do it with matches. Because some cigars guys don't like torches. I never got it.
It's a trick. It's a preference thing. I like them, but it's I guess the thing done.
I'll tell you that matchers are probably the most natural way. If you have long matches, if you have cedar spills, it's the most natural way. But I think that stems off of going back to using lighter, like Zippo lighters.
Yeah, that lighter is kind of weird. Like if you do it sideways, it won't go.
Because when you had Zippo lighters, you used lighter fluid, and it burned very clean. If you ever have lighter fluid, you put it in a bonfire, and it stinks. But now that you have butane, it burns pretty clean, so it's not going to impart any bad flavors. But
that initial blueprint draw, you can use that in a commercial, but the initial draw blueprint, so you're kind of expecting it because it's a beautiful label. For me, it's a little dark of a wrapper. I typically like Connecticut. But for Maduro, it has kind of like the benefits and flavor of a Maduro, but with the smoothness of a Connecticut.
I like it. I mean...
You heard it here first, baby.
We put two years into it, so we weren't going to release anything that was shite. So let's...
The man's been driving all the way from Jersey for 2.5 hours.
You say when, my friend.
That's good.
Okay.
It's going to be semi-responsible tonight.
Right.
I mean, you can always count on the Long Island Expressway, Cross Island in New York to have traffic no matter what. When you said you were leaving around 4, I said, oh, God bless that man. It's going to be in the car. Hope he's got a good podcast to listen to or something. Because
Burndown Podcast.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Cheers, gentlemen.
So cheers, Tom. Thank you for joining us.
God bless.
We're excited to have you on, and we can't wait to get into it.
All right.
So let's just get a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Tom Vecchia, who is he? Where is he from? What's his story here?
Yeah. So my parents came over from Italy in '59, moved to Lisbon, New Jersey, like a lot of Italians did. Then I was born in '75, so at that point they already moved out of Elizabeth into the suburbs. And just like a regular guy, grew up as an Italian American in Jersey, stereotypical in many ways, and wasn't like real studious in high school. I think I had like C's at best. So my mother was like really pushing me to get into like a program where you worked, you went to school. But then I realized, if I'm going to do corporate, I have to, go to school as well. So I went to school full-time and worked full-time for like 4 years. I did both full-time. Then when I graduated, I'm like, you know what? They're going to pay for my MBA. Let me get an MBA too. Like I went from like being like a C student to be like real studious, because like when like you go part-time at night and weekends, it's kind of taken away from you. You want it more, So I got real studious, got my MBA, and did corporate for 20 years, and then I started X Factor 10 years ago.
Wow. So what were you doing in between being in corporate America? What was the transition like of starting your own company, jumping ship?
Great question. So I started out literally in corporate America in the mailroom. and worked my way up. And so I was going to college still, so I was getting like different jobs while I was there, and I actually got a job that you needed a college degree for, even though I didn't graduate, because I'd been there a while. So then I finally got into sales around 26-ish. It's been a while. And never looked back. I love sales. It's my passion. I wrote a sales book a few years back, and then just got different levels of responsibility. But I knew I was going to do one of two things, right, after I got my MBA. I said I'm either going to want to head up something in a big corporation and run it, or start my own business. Probably my own business because I can control what I do. I learned all the corporate tricks and trades, everything else, and when the timing was right, I went to start my own business 10 years ago.
Wow. And that became X Factor Media.
Yes, through 10 years in October, which we almost busted out twice, but we're still here.
So tell us what exactly X Factor offers. Like, what do you provide? Yeah, what's the value that you provide? Because there's a lot of people out say, I'm a digital marketer. It's like, okay, you and everybody else. But
correct.
What sets X Factor apart from everybody else?
Another good question. So we basically get your online visibility to be greater, right? So initially, we were about like websites, which most people are, right? So we build beautiful websites. Also, we'll do SEO to come on top of Google. We'll do social media for you to kind of like, whether it be Instagram or TikTok. We're doing a lot more in YouTube now, which we'll talk about a little bit for myself and for other clients. And just pretty much anything digital. But our core is Google, which is SEO and PPC paid ads. Mm-hmm. But we're branching out with like billboards. We're doing geofencing.
Nice.
So if you guys wanted to geofence cigar shops, when somebody walks in and walks out, we could live on their phone for 30 days just by hitting that area. So there's a lot of cool things that we do. So essentially, we increase your presence online, and we have a few different ways that we do it.
I love it. So geofencing. So you're saying that you can set up essentially a fence, but on the internet. So if somebody comes in and their location says they're within this fence,
correct,
you can target them like, all right, they're within 50 feet of a cigar lounge. There's a good chance they might be in that cigar lounge, or even if they're within 10 feet of the lounge, they're probably in the lounge. Correct. You can shoot ads.
Oh no, you can fence just the actual lounge. So let's just say I would have fenced this great clubhouse here. When I walk in, I get fenced. Yeah, and obviously has my demographics: a male, 40-something years old, and when I leave, it'll follow me for 30 days, and you could hit them with blueprint ads.
We're gonna have to have another conversation off camera.
Geofencing, it's like with Snapchat. You go on Snapchat wherever you are. You can put filters of New York City, Chicago, or like I know people who have weddings, right? And they go on Instagram and they'll geofence the venue and they'll say Justin and Kelly's wedding, and it'll be like a tag on it. And So geofence, it's pretty wild.
Geo targeting, meaning you can put a hashtag there. But this goes one step further. Once you leave the fence, it follows you.
It knows that you entered the zone, and it like marks you, like flags this person. Hey, this person was in the shop. Correct. Flag them. Now you can target them.
And I'll go one step further. So you guys have a great podcast, right? That's why I'm here. I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Big fan. And you guys could like split test. You could say, hey, you know what? Let's get people on the podcast as a long-term play. Maybe tee up the podcast to half the group, and the other one a straight ad to your Blueprint cigar site. And then kind of see which does better. Yeah.
And
some people might have an appetite for cigar content, get to know you guys, and then want to buy. Or some people more transactional, like, screw this, let me buy these. These seem pretty good.
Yeah, because we've actually found going through, I mean, we're much bigger on Instagram than we are on YouTube, but that's mostly because we've been on Instagram for 4+ years. And we are on TikTok, we're not really on Twitter. We just kind of repost stuff there. But we mainly focus on Instagram. But we can see that there's some people that they don't really listen or watch the podcast per se, but they follow us on Instagram. They saw that we released a cigar, like, hey, I want to buy a cigar.
Correct.
I'm like, oh, okay, and then I'll say, all right, you want to buy a cigar, and I send them to the website. So go to the website, and then if they contact us, myself or him, regarding the cigar, we can filter them to the website.
Correct.
And then maybe they'll be like, oh shit, they have a podcast too.
Let's listen. So you were saying X Factor Media almost burst twice. I remember when like I said, I looked you up on Google. I read something where they were doing a biography or an article about you, and you talked about how it almost crashed twice. So tell us a little bit about those little obstacles.
So 2 times. The first was when I first started. I was started out, and it was me and another guy, and this young girl was working with us, and he just was like, we were having some problems with getting clients on board. He was managing the PPC for us, so we had, let's say, making this up a $5,000 budget, right? So he goes, we were working a lot. He goes, I'm going to take off the weekend. I think it was Memorial Day weekend. And he set all the PPCs for the max on Friday, and he left them on until like Wednesday of next week, the next week.
And what's PPC again?
Pay-per-click for Google.
Pay-per-click.
So basically, again, one of the learnings for any business owner, especially new ones, I had lack of control. I just had a credit card and have it like set up. So when the bill came in, I owed $50,000, of which I didn't have. And I left corporate and I didn't have the money. So I begged and pleaded with Google. They gave me not money back, but they gave me a credit. I worked something out with him where I didn't chap him too hard. I said, listen, this is a pretty big F-up. I'm not going to ding you for $50K, but I think he took a reduction for so long to kind of make some of that back. The came back there and we survived. The second was, this is interesting. Oh, end of 2015, we just had a burst. We had a client approach us about some really big projects, and he prepaid about $300,000. So I went from being a $600,000 a year business to $1 million business in 1 year. So
almost in just one deal, not like in 1 year, but in one freaking deal.
Yeah, prior to that, we did 400 the first year. So what happened was we grew too fast, too quick. I did not have controls in place. I didn't have the experience, and I overhired. So I overhired people for this anticipated demand. I didn't have controls. I was losing $20,000-$30,000 a month. Didn't even know it because when you get those big numbers.
Yeah.
And then just got to the point where the client wanted their money back, and I didn't have it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So they gave you the $300,000. You used to hire more people to kind of figure, hey, I got to hire more people. I got to grow this. And then they're like, nah, I don't want to do it anymore.
And the project that we were working on was I was having the burn rate every month, meaning I was spending the money every rate for the project. And he kept rejecting everything. So in his eyes, he was like, hey, you didn't do anything.
I want my money back. And you're like, no, I spent $50,000 a month.
Correct. So what happened was I basically figured out what I spent when I was able to knock off the bill, but I still owed him $160. I didn't have that either. So I had money at the time, and like from inheritance or some other stuff, I had to give that back out of my personal funds. So and
that hurts.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I was at the bank and I was just in shock. And the scary thing is, I know a lot of people be like, why don't you just claim bankruptcy or screw the guy, or why don't you have a payment plan? He was a friend of mine too, and I wanted to keep the relationship. So I just took my personal money, gave it back. And sure enough, he bailed on me. And it kind of turned out later on that it was a tax play on his part. Again, I got all this money in 2015. I was on the hook for the taxes. I didn't know. Like, I'm thinking, like, all right, well, like next year I'll have the expenses. It doesn't work that way because by calendar year. So I had all the expenses on the hook, right? I mean, the taxes on the hook. I hired all these people. He kept rejecting all the expenses. And then I could have, like, fought him on it. But he was a big plastic surgeon. He could have sued me and been like, what am I going to do? Now I can, now he can paper me.
You can kind of, you weighed the options like,
I did what I believe was the ethical thing and give the money back. But the real lesson here was you should have, regardless of friendships, contracts in place like, hey, no refunds, or it's got to be spent by this time, or this how to spend it. Number 2, better controls, and 3, don't trust anybody, man. I thought good people at the time, and by growing too much too quick, not having controls, almost buried me.
I mean, let's be honest. You interview mob guys, and we'll get into that later. But what's one thing you learned from the mob? Don't trust anyone.
Okay. I know better. I know.
And so you got that deal basically on a handshake or written on a napkin. You didn't actually know how contracts. We
had an agreement, but like it wasn't detailed. It was like a scope of work, and then the scope of work, about $200,000 was a straight scope of work. About $100,000 of it was basically a prepayment. So kind of like to be used later.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, worst case, I'll give it back to him, or I'll take the taxes out. But because I wasn't able to use most of the $200,000, but I had the expense. And then number 2 is I also, how do I say this? I also hired against growth, meaning because I had all that money, and I plowing it back into the business, thinking I was going to grow. I didn't. So because I didn't grow, because I didn't have the controls, it was like one big perfect storm.
So it was a learning experience, right?
God, yeah. So since then, I was able. You could do net operating loss on your taxes,
right?
So you get some back there. I dummy tax, so I learned a lot moving forward. So my contract's a lot better, my business is a lot better, and obviously since made more than that back. But it was scary.
Wow. I mean, I pretty much I know the answer to this question.
And I don't talk about it so much. I did write about it in Forbes once, but I never really talked about it publicly.
So you heard it here first in the burn down. But I imagine that if you had to do it again, you probably would just do the same exact thing because it's a learning experience, right? If that didn't happen, then you wouldn't know what to do now, and maybe you might be in an even worse situation,
now,
right?
For example, I'll give you an example. I have my sister runs my other business, right? And she's a manager. One thing I learned, one of my interviews, I don't know if you came up on your research, was Jeff Hoffman. He was a guy who helped Jeter buy the Marlins. Good guy, billionaire. He told me there's 3 type of people. There are your innovators, the guy who spent all the money. The first story was an innovator. He was an idea guy. He wanted to come up with this idea, that idea, that idea, that. You know, there's friends that always calling you up with all these big ideas, but then they never do them. Right? So you have your innovators, right? Then you have your managers. I know you're a good manager because you're an engineer. Everything's done perfect. I was so scared to be late. I'm like, Justin's going to kill me. I was actually scared. I'm scared. So you have your managers. No, I'm sorry. You have your innovators, and then you have your builders. I'm a builder. I know who I am. I'm not as innovative. I'm not being self-evasive. I'm just not that innovative. And I'm a terrible manager. I don't have controls, but I'm a builder. If you give me something, I'll just build it. Right? And then the third is a manager. So innovator, builder, manager. My sister's a great manager, operator. She worked part-time in the business and helped out. If I were to do it all over again for that kind of money, I would have had her work with us half the time or full-time and watch every penny of it and has to get approved and has to go out. Mm-hmm. I just got willy-nilly. I got cocky. Like I bought furniture. It's now I understand kind of like a lot of those athletes coming to big money. And then they later on like waste it all. Now I kind of understand. And I wasn't an opulent person. I didn't go out and buy a Ferrari. I didn't go nuts. But poor controls and the wrong people. So you got to get better controls and get the right people in the bus.
Learning curve for sure.
Big time.
I mean, that's when I always watch these entrepreneur things and they're like, don't grow too fast. Like, try not to grow too fast.
Correct.
Incrementalize every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do grow really fast, have someone there to help you work through it. Because like, have a situation for yourself where you're like, oh, I have all this money. I can do X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
And then it just like,
well,
what's
Mark
happening?
Cuban always says sales cures all. Not necessarily. Because again, when you have and I know people watching, they'd be like, oh, this guy's an idiot or, which to an extent I was. But like growing too quick is a big issue in business, especially at that time, somewhat of a startup. And I just didn't know what to do. So now that I've been in the game a little bit, I'm a little wiser. Client acquisition, I'm taking on the right clients that, like, if they're not the right fit, we'll say no as opposed to...
Yeah, like somebody who's just, like, has an idea and hasn't really done anything in the past. So like, hey, I have this idea and I came into a lot of money.
Correct.
Do something. You're like, hold on a second. Let's...
Look at this ash.
Oh, I thought you were looking at that. Yeah.
Look at this
I ashed mine because we have a rule now in the studio since we left the kind of lounge chair setup and more of a podcast setup.
Shit.
That's exactly what I... So,
look at that,
but that's stacked.
Okay, but this is show this for the commercial. Look at that.
That's a nice stack right there.
That is a sign of a great cigar.
That's a stack.
If you people are listening, Tommy just dropped the ash and it fell upright and it's stacked like a tower.
And
so what we actually,
look.
I love it. I love it.
And it's solid.
And we came up with the rule because we used to drop ash on one's person as a rookie move, right?
Correct.
But since we were no longer leaning back, we're leaning forward, right? Talking to the mics, we would say, all right, listen, if you ash on the table, if you hit the microphone, 100% rookie move. But if you ash on the table, it counts as a rookie move because ash goes in the ashtray. So that's why we keep ashing it. Now, you didn't know that landed perfectly, so you kind of... It negates the rookie move. God. It didn't land and splatter. Yeah. It landed solid. So
you do have the rookie move board right behind you. We've been keeping.
We keep track.
We've been keeping track of everything. So the deal last year was some people said, "Hey, you guys should have a contest and keep track of how many rookie moves, and there should be a wager at the end."
I love it.
So I was losing. I think it was only like 1 or 2 for the year, but I was losing by 1. And it was like the last episode we shot for the year, and Justin dropped ash over himself, so we ended up tying. And the wager was supposed to be whoever loses the person who won will go into the what do you call it?
Thrift store
and pick out any outfit, dress, whatever you want, and they gotta wear it. So Now we both have to do it. We still have yet to do it, but that is the wager on the line.
So we were kind of waiting for summertime, because if we're going to wear a dress, I'm not going to be sitting in a dress when it's
February,
when it's 30 degrees in here. I mean, we have the heaters and everything.
Oh, that's only deterrent? Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want
Might
to
be even funnier.
I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be.
I'll wear it when it's warm, but when it's cold, I won't.
With a dress, it kind of reveals everything. Like, it's cold in there, isn't it?
Well, we kind of missed the timeline now,
But,
so that might
yeah.
have to be a thing now.
We'll definitely have to do that. So, all right. So let's now move into, when did you start? So you have this business, right? X Factor.
Yeah.
You have this, but now, at what point did you decide to get into the podcast game? Because your podcast is pretty successful right now. You have 12,000 followers, 13,000 on
almost,
YouTube. I don't know how many listeners you have, but tell us about that. How did you get into the podcast game?
Yeah, so it relates to so I started newtheory.com in 16. And what happened was I started on my mother passed in 14. So on her birthday in 16, I launched it as like an homage to her. And it was a millennial focus, like Elite Daily was big and all that stuff was big. So I just put some articles up, and I got 1,000 hits over the weekend. I'm like, holy shit, this is holy crap. Sorry,
you can curse.
You can curse whatever the fuck you want to say.
You can say whatever the fuck you want. Eric, turn that light just a little bit
So holy shit, we have something
towards
here.
us.
So I started ramping up New Theory. That's how I got the deal from the doctor, because we were going to do a title for him, a publication for him, and it was going pretty well. And then we wrote an article, like on a whim. I read an article that I told somebody to write, and an assistant wrote it on a whim. It was poorly done, about people to no longer go to bars because of Tinder and all that kind of stuff. And it went like super viral, like 300,000 hits in like a week. It was like insane. So I was like, all right, you know what? We've got something here. So that's when I ramped up and got that money. So when I had to pay everything back, I was busted out. So I said I had 4 staff writers at the time. I had to get rid of 3 of them.
What was it for?
Staff writers?
Staff writers.
4 staff writers. 2 or 3 of them were working just for New Theory and the periodical that crashed, and then 1 working just for the agency. So when I had to pay everything back, I was broke. So, but New Theory was my passion. I launched on my mom's birthday. I'm like, this is not dying. I was like, oh shit, what do? I can't write. I do not write well. I have a master's degree. I write at the 3rd grade level. Right? So
I'm there with you. Every time I write something, I tell my wife, Marissa, read this over. Does this sound right? She's like, no, hold on. That sounds better.
I'm going to plug them. I use Grammarly.
It's there, not there, right? That one.
I just started understanding there and there.
There and
he's and his.
I'll tell you a story about. So there and there, I'm a nut for like grammar. It's just it has to be.
My partner is an editor. So
I'm a nut for it, and I posted a reel, and I put there and I put the wrong there because autocorrect fucked me up, and and I didn't think. I just posted it, and somebody dropped a comment. I was maybe 20 minutes. It was posted for 20 minutes. Somebody dropped a comment, said it's THEY apostrophe, not THEIR. I'm like, fuck it, I gotta remove it. So I saved the video. I deleted it and reposted it because I was like, I can't have this up.
Controlling.
I was like, I can't have this up.
There's plenty of videos where my captions say there and there's a wrong there, and people are like, and I go, autocorrect.
I could. Well, granted, it was soon enough. If it was up for a whole day already and had most of it was up for maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, I can remove it. It had maybe 10 comments. I can remove it.
Did you notice the thing on Instagram now for the reels? You can delete it and it saves in your drafts, re-edit it, and it goes back on. You don't have to redo it.
I didn't know that.
You don't lose views?
No, I don't know about losing the views.
You probably lose the views.
But you can re-edit.
So like if you post a video, you can delete it and it will say delete and shift it back to the draft.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You can go right back
That's
to the
smart.
draft.
That's a new feature.
Yeah, so
That's smart.
And it's pretty quick because there's a few times where I'm like, shit, let me write this up real quick.
Yeah, until they get rid of reels.
Yeah, until that day comes too.
So let me share what happened. So I had a crap can my writers. I had no money, and they were part of the reason why we were in that mess because they just weren't producing. There was a lot going on there. It's a little contentious, so I got rid of them. And I'm like, I can't write. What do? I have this beautiful website that gets traffic. It was making decent money, but it was growing, right? So one thing is I wrote a sales book, X Factor Selling System was a bestseller. So I'm like, you know what? People will always come to me like we would do deals and be in sales and be like, oh my God, I would pay to hear that conversation you had. I would pay to hear how you got that deal. I would love to listen to how you did it. So I said, you know what? My power is a spoken word. So I started the New Theory podcast as a way to salvage newtheory.com. And then sure enough, I got early on Gary Vaynerchuk in early 17.
Oh, wow.
I talked about Jeff Hoffman, Jordan Belfort. a lot of great people and a lot of great conversations. So like selfishly, I was learning from that, but I was uploading the podcast as content for the site in lieu of writers, and it saved the site.
So you got Gary Vee and Jordan. How do you get all these guys?
So I'm pretty good at.
Those are some big names.
Yeah. I mean, on top of all the the mob guys that you've gotten, D. Snider. I mean, you got some big names. So tell us about it. How do you score these?
Yeah. So I always say everybody has a superpower. I don't care who they are. I'm going to ask Shirley, my friend. Yeah, he scares me, bro.
He's a big German. We call him the German missile.
That pulls deep. My car will be hidden. And they'll think it's one of the former mob guys too. So, nevertheless, that's a good way to whack somebody. Hey, come on the podcast. Like next thing you know,
show up at this house.
Let's address. Maybe this is all fictitious. Like it's like a set.
And then it becomes very easy to be suspect. So. Exactly. Last time you saw he was on the Burn Down podcast.
Exactly.
What happened to the pod? They didn't release an episode that week. What happened?
They skipped it. So there's two things I'm good at. One is I'm really good at guest acquisition. And two, I think, and I'm getting better, and my earlier interviews were rough, I'm pretty good at interviewing people and unpacking the situation to make it more palatable and to have people understand a little better so they can extract something from it. So guest acquisition, it's funny. So like Jeff Hoffman, like if you were to sit with him, and like, hey, I want to consult or you be my mentor, he probably gets upwards of $10,000 an hour. He's a billionaire. But like, I notice if you ask somebody to be on your podcast, they come on.
They do it for free.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I was just very good at, forming the letters, being aggressive. Now, listen, I obviously didn't have, any presidents on or, crazy people, but I have like a 95% success rate of who I want. I'm a little eclectic. So who I want on the podcast, I was able to get on. So I kind of say who fits what I want as part of the narrative or the arc of the show. And so I'm good at getting by emailing them, maybe reaching out on social media. So one advantage is if they're promoting something, like if they have a publicist and they're promoting a book or movie, I'll reach out to them at that time. Makes it easier. Or the opposite, they're doing nothing and be like, hey, you want to pop on and just shoot the shit.
And if they have something that they're trying to push and you have a platform that they can push it on, it's kind of a win-win. You say, hey, listen, because they're trying to do something, they're trying to push it, and you say, hey, listen, I'd love to get them on. We could talk about their book, we could talk about their movie, whatever it is. So it's kind of like a nice little...
It's a good little nugget.
But how do you find the contacts, right? Because
so not
many people answer Instagram.
Well, what I do is I try to work my network. So I'll give you an example. Perez Hilton I had on early on. And I know he's not as big as he was, but he was pretty big back then.
Yeah.
And I asked him afterwards, I'm like, Perez, why did you do my podcast? He goes, the reason is there's people that listen to your show that don't know who I am. So if I could pick up a little bit of people here and there, it's worth it for me. And that's the way he explained it. So when I kind of knew that was I knew that in my kind of knew that back in my head. So whenever I'd reach out to somebody, I say, hey, you're going to reach some people you otherwise wouldn't have reached. Jordan Belfort happened to be promoting something. Gary Vee, he was promoting wine. So I bought a few cases of wine. And for some reason, he took like a liking to me. So like it was weird. He's my girlfriend, not my wife at the time. I'm like, hey, can you film while we're doing it? And we got up late, and just comes, nah, I have no interest. I'm like, you have no interest in seeing Gary Vee? I'm like, all right, I'll go by myself. And I bought a few cases of his empathy wine that he was doing, and he knew I was going to interview him, and he was apologetic. He's like, oh, let me just do a few more. He was like apologetic to me because I was going to interview him at the end. And when I sit down and interview him, he goes, I saw you bought a few cases. Nice touch. It's just like, so he knew I got it. You know what I mean? So in my book, I talk about everybody has an X factor, which is you're motivated by one of four things: people, product, process, and price. So I'm going to diagnose you guys. You are a process guy, okay? So like when I was late, it wasn't good. The cameras had to be set up a certain way. This is a good thing. So if I'm going to be selling to you, or if I'm going to try to influence you, I'm not going to talk price. I'm going to talk how easy it is to do and make your life easier and go through the process one-on-one.
Yes.
You seem more of a relationship guy. So you're people-centric. So I would get to know you, get to know your wife, your fiance, what you're into, maybe pick up something that is not known about you as much, or buy a box of blueprints. You're like, oh, wow, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So it's people, product, process, and price. For product people, those are the people that, oh my God, Kim Kardashian ate there like last week. So like now I need to go there. There's a lot of product centric people, right? Brand centric. Those are the people who use the words like best or exclusive. And then lastly, price. People that just want a better price or value. And believe it or not, only 15% of people buy in price. So those are the 4 Ps on how to influence somebody. So I try to figure what the 4 P of each of those people are. And that's how I'm able to get them. Like Mark Cuban keeps saying no to me directly, but I'm going to get them.
That's a pretty good theory. I've never heard those 4 types of Ps. I've heard other, these are the 4
Ps of marketing, but I took the 4 Ps of sales. The 3 Ps I borrowed from, if you know Marcus Lemonis, actually comes from Harvard. The 3 Ps, but I added a 4th for price. When you meet people, you ask questions and you can by their answer and how they are, you could just tell what their P is. Like he's sitting up straight, like you not as much. So he's definitely process centric.
100%.
It's a good thing.
No, I 100% agree because like one of the things as like I started as an engineer, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm into the sales side
Correct.
of things. But one of the things as an engineer, what we do is we try to make things easier.
Yes.
We don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Process.
We don't try to design. We try to make
Correct.
whatever it is going from A to B. We try to do that in the least amount of work and the most efficiently.
Correct.
So I'm big into like how can we like whenever we come in here, I say okay, we have a plan. How can we get the most done in this amount of time?
Correct.
Because I'll be honest, I don't want to work harder. I want to work less and get the same amount out.
Correct.
Like I'm trying to be as efficient as possible, right?
Yeah.
And he's 100% like the P. He's the guy who's always like out there trying to network with people, get this person, get that person. And I'm the technical guy, like get everything set up, get this done, get that.
Sometimes I gotta remind myself that because sometimes I'm like, fuck, like I'm posting so much more than Justin, Justin, and I'm like, all right, let me think here.
Yeah.
I am a marketing guy. I'm a people guy. I want to be in your face type of guy. Where Justin's the background, like, hey, yeah, that's great. We did this, but how are we gonna, connect A, B, and C together and this and that? I'm like, all right, this is why it works out because, we're yin and yang.
Yeah.
Like you said, people, process, and it's a great partnership because it works out perfect.
It actually goes back to like what you were talking about, how you know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Correct.
And the thing about being successful in any sort of business is bringing in the people that are good at what you're not good at. So like you said, you're a builder, right? But you're not a manager. But your sister is a manager. So you have her manage it because that's what she does.
Correct.
And then you are the builder. I can build. And you have somebody who's innovative. So same thing. He's great at building the relationship and connecting with people. And I'm good at the behind the scenes stuff, right? I built the website. I have all the technical stuff. Like,
Correct.
So that's where it's we're the same person in some aspects, but then we're different in others.
Correct.
And where we're different, we really help each other out.
Because we're both in sales, and
Yeah.
more than anything, I just like learning and bullshitting with people. I like understanding people, walks of life. What makes people tick, what makes
Correct.
people laugh, and I'm all about it. I love people, even though sometimes I say I hate people because there's so many idiots out there. But at the end of the day, I just like to get to know people. So when we have people on our podcast, when we have people in our podcast, it gets my juices flowing because I'm like, what am I going to learn from this person? How am I going to connect with them?
And it's funny how we're both in sales, but we're both like different orient, right? I'm process, you're people.
Correct.
So it shows you how can two different people do the same job? It's like there's not one way to sell people. There's like different ways to go about it. And you, like you said, you try to find out by asking questions what that person is. And he might be selling by, all right, I'm all relationships. I'm big in making relationships and getting to sell that way. I'm more of the process guy. So when I sell, and being in the engineering, you're selling about, hey, listen, my product is going to make your life a hell of a lot easier.
Correct.
And so it's kind of.
So I'm going to give you some cool pearls. All right. So the first is you hit the nail on the head, Justin. So I'm actually thinking of doing an actual show on this. So have you ever guys heard of Ray? He's actually from Long Island. Ray Dalio.
Yes.
So he's one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah, he was in. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money Mastering the Game. And Ray Dalio was in there, big investor, multi-billionaire, and they talk about
$18 billion.
Yeah, they talk about he's in there. I didn't know that he was from Long Island though.
Yeah, wrote the book, maybe like a Queens guy growing up, but from Long Island essentially, and then worth at least like $18 billion in counting. So he spoke at a Business Insider event, and I bought his book. Got his book, Principles, which I highly recommend. And I'm talking to him for a while, and like how you get a signature and you BS a little bit. He gave me like 15, 20 minutes. Just some reason I had him in the hall. I figured his X factor is going to want to hear himself talk. He's going to hear himself teach. So we were talking for a while. A little above and beyond the cursory, like, hey, kid, let me sound this for you, right? So he said to me, he goes, you need to be good at you need to hire people that that do the shit that you don't know what to do or how to do it. What you just exactly said. So you know who also said that during an interview? Sammy the Bull. The same exact thing.
Great transition.
Two completely different lives.
Correct.
Two completely different, businesses, if you will.
Correct. So, like, I'm going to probably do an episode. Now, it's funny because I've gotten some no's, obviously. So, I remember Ray was walking out. I was calling my buddy, he's in hedge funds. And I'm like, dude, I just talked to Ray Dalio for like 20 minutes. I'm, like, shaking. I'm like, should I ask him to come on the podcast? He's like, fuck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Because I was a little there, So, he walks out after I talked to him for 20 minutes. I said, Ray, Tom again, real quick. He goes, like, will you come to my podcast? I'll reach out to your person. I'll make it easy for you, blah, blah. He goes, nah, and he walks out. I was like crushed, right? but I got from him what I needed to get from him. So when Sammy says you need to hire the people that are good at the things you're not good at or don't like to do, the fact that we had Ray Dalio, who was the most successful investor of all time, and one of the most successful gangsters of all time, had the same principle. And that's the shit that makes the stuff stand up on the back of your neck.
So no matter what industry you're in, it all comes back to just a few principles that...
Correct.
The roots for sure. Now, it's a good segue.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I believe you found our podcast and found us from our interview with Billy Catola.
Correct.
Okay. So you're a big mob head.
Mob historian, absolutely.
Mob historian. Yeah. You love the history of it.
So that's what they say, mob historian?
Mob historian, yeah. Mob,
it justifies being like...
Like in gangsters and mob movies. Yeah. That's the nice way of putting it.
Correct.
So what grew your, passion and love for that type of lifestyle? Because you had some big guys like John Elite.
Yeah.
You said Sammy the Bull, Gravano.
Yeah.
You just had Pablo Escobar's wife on there. You've had a bunch of gangsters on there.
Yeah.
So how did that whole thing? And then you bought Mobsters Inc., the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So go into a little bit about the whole mob thing.
So there is a story to it. So my mother being, from Italy and moving to Elizabeth, that's like the birthplace of the Cavalcante family. And the boss at the time, John Riggi, married somebody from her mother's town who was our cousin, or everybody's a cousin or whatever. My point being is, my mother was around it, but she hated mobsters, right? She would see like John Gotti on TV, she would like spit at it, like give us a bad name. So my first cousin, who we were a little bit of estranged with anyway. And Italian families, like, if somebody took somebody's cow 100 years ago, you don't talk to that side, all that crap, Just it happens in a lot of families. But nevertheless, my first cousin married Sammy the Bull's niece.
Your first cousin married Sammy the Bull's
niece. So, sure enough...
You getting the audio? Okay, I see you keep peeping at it.
I'm just making sure that we're not getting any like static or anything.
The process guy's making sure the process.
I'm just making sure it's going.
See, we'll record, and then it won't even be on. We won't even know. He knows everything.
Now I'm like always like eyeing it because I've had trauma now where we've had episodes and they didn't record or the audio sucked or the cameras didn't suck. Yeah. So I'm always like high alert. Like, is everything okay?
I just keep poking over to making sure I'm getting signal from all three microphones. And it's tough because sometimes you'll be talking in the middle of a thing where like you lean back over here and you lean back over here. So I'm like looking, making sure, okay, are we still getting audio? Are we still like, because it is tough. And not to go on a side note, but we had to learn, and I'm sure you learned the same thing being on a podcast, is that you have to like, you don't realize that when you're having a conversation, you just kind of move around.
Correct.
But you have to remember that you're having a podcast. Like, you have to be
correct
and talk like into the microphone and talk in. And some people talk over here. And we've done that so many times.
We've interviewed New York Knicks legend John Starks. At his lounge in Connecticut, and we had that same microphone, but his microphone was like over here.
Yeah.
And he's a very monotone type of guy. So he was like
very soft spoken. He's
like, so this and that, blah, 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 blah. So the audio was super low. So Justin, the engineer he is, took like a week, like messing with the audio, hitting the beats up, getting everything high. And I thought, oh my God, we lost the episode. You know how many times I thought we lost an episode? And Justin's like, nope, I fixed it. I'm like, oh my God, thank you.
Good guy, John Starks, too. Yeah. That's a good get. So what happened was, because my mother felt that way, she kind of like really annexed us away from anybody in that life. So don't get me wrong, being an Italian American in New Jersey in the 80s, weddings, funerals, dinner dances, Sunday dinners, whatever that be, you're gonna come across some people. It just is what it is, right? But in general, if it could be prevented, my mother kept us out of it. So because she kept us out of it, I gained a keen interest in it. So I read over 100 books. I've interviewed. I've actually had the dubious distinction of interviewing the most made inducted members in the Mafia in the country right now. I'm at number 7, and I'm working on number 8.
Wow.
Patrick Beck.
So
David,
say that again. You had the most.
Yeah, inducted members. So I got to check on Vlad. I think Vlad's at 6.
Yeah, I watched a lot of his interviews.
Correct.
He interviews a lot of made guys.
Correct. But some of them are associates. That's why it's a big deal. And what's his name? Patrick Beck David, who I have a connection to, a guy that I know with.
Wait. You know PBD?
All right.
My buddy is his right under his guy.
I love Patrick.
All right. So
I'm working on getting him too.
So hold on. So you went back and you talked about utilizing your network to get people on.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to start utilizing our network, aka to get somebody.
Well, there's one secret. I'm old. When you get old, you just get to know a lot of people.
We're gonna have to start getting, because these are some big names, man.
I mean, you gotta say Patrick Beck David like 2 or 3 times before I just clicked in my head. I'm like, wait, I watch like Patrick Beck David.
Well, I'll give you PBD. So what happened was I was trying to get him on, and this guy Joe, who I'm friends with, reaches out to me. You know, we lost touch. Got a little splash.
That's what I was doing.
Just kidding. So thank you, sir.
You're
so
welcome.
what happened was Joe reached out, and it's at Value Entertainment. Said, Joe, you work for PBD? He goes, yeah. I'm like, I've been trying to get him on the podcast. So I said, listen, just so you know, I just interviewed Sammy, I interviewed Francis, all the people that he interviewed. I got the Mafia States of America, I got all that stuff. And sure enough, I got the nice no. He's like, he's busy right now. He's doing his podcast, the PBD podcast.
He's busy.
I don't think it's a go, right? I kind of got big timed.
Which isn't really wrong. I mean, the guy's
no, but now I'm going to hit him with
busy,
the Pablo interview, the Pablo's wife interview. So I'm just going to keep going bigger and bigger till like, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the guy that like, this is going to sound good or bad. I don't know, depending how you look at it. Like, my wife is respectfully, she's a great mom. She's awesome. She's a smoke show. Like what is she doing with me? I'm that guy. You're always like, how the fuck did you do it? But I keep doing it. And that's what I love. I want to be underestimated. I want people to not see me coming. I want them to think, oh, that fat old guy with the beard. It's fine. Let them think that. And then when I show up, like, oh, shit, wait a second. That's the 3rd, 4th time. Like, wow, this guy's serious. So that's what you do. You build motion creates emotion. Once you start building bigger guests, and then it's funny. Whenever somebody talks about me, they talk about Sammy, right? Oh, you interviewed Sammy, right? I'm also friends with his daughter. That's kind of funny. So I was at another long story, but I'll keep it simple.
No, keep it going, man. I mean, we're only 40 minutes in.
You remember Entourage?
I'm loving these stories.
Yeah. Remember Entourage? So, a plastic surgeon, because I'm in the plastic surgery field. I'm like, can't tell by looking at me because I'm like the plumber with the leaky pipe, but I did work in that field, right? I should have maybe took some of their direction. But nevertheless, I went to the Entourage premiere with a plastic surgeon friend of mine. He paid for my ticket. It was like 2 G's, right? I'm there, and who's there? Karen Gravano. I said, Karen, we're cousins.
She's like, fuck you.
She's like, what do you mean? She goes, Rena's husband is my cousin Anthony. She goes, oh my God, I won't say the name, last name Pete.
Yeah.
And boom, and then we became friends. So I had Karen, and I'm friends with Ramona Rizzo, who's Lefty Gunn's granddaughter.
Yep.
So I'm personal friend. I'm a little closer to Ramona, but I'm friends with Ramona at this point, and I'm friends with Karen. And Karen came on my show and got a lot of views, and so did Ramona as well.
Crazy.
It's all about. Well, that's like with the.
I know both those women you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, we kind of started going into the athletes who smoke cigars, right? And we had, through a friend of a friend, we were able to get Fred Robbins on. We got Eric Coleman on. We got Ed Reed on. We got John Starks on.
Oh, wow.
But it's all like, we did an event with one of New York Cigar Weekend. Yeah. They were a group of guys that do an event in New York, and they asked us to come down. We did a podcast hour, so we got their connection.
Beautiful.
And they actually had John Starks' cigar sponsoring, so we met him. Said, "Hey, would you love to get you on the thing?" And okay, here's my assistant, but we wound up getting him on.
Well, you're leaving out the best part. We both won his giveaways.
Yes, we have it right up there.
Oh, wow.
The John Starks one.
Sidebar. I was like, you know what? Let me brush up on my John Starks history, just in case I have a conversation with him. I can talk intelligently, right? So they're doing giveaways. They're giving away his boxes signed, and the entry was like, hey, you got to DM New York Cigar Weekend on Instagram. The answers. So the answer was like, the question was like, where did John Starks play high school basketball? and I think he was like in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
But I knew that like 2 hours before from reading Wikipedia.
Yep.
And I answered it, and I was
Yeah.
right. And I got the box, yada yada yada. And then like 2 questions later, Justin got the answer right. So we took a picture with him, and we're like, "Hey, we got this podcast." He's like, "Yeah, talk to my partner, John or Peter," and that's how we connected. But it was just like I specifically remember going, "All right, let me brush up on my knowledge here." And that's ultimately what I think we got the interview with him.
And it's kind of it's all about, like you said, utilizing the network, utilizing who you know, right? For instance, we got Ed Reed on, and I don't remember exactly how we got Ed. I think he followed one of us. He was a fan of the podcast, and we wound up getting him on.
This was years ago. We didn't I don't know if we had a podcast. We might have just started out. We just started out.
Yeah.
But I had a pretty decent following on Instagram. I was big into the pictures, and he followed me.
Wow.
I remember working for my cousin, demoing a bathroom.
Yeah.
And I took a break, reading, and I'm like, oh, Ed Reed, check mark. I'm like, yeah, it's got to be like a fan account. And I'm like, oh, shit, this is Ed Reed.
He's got the check mark.
So I messaged him, and he responded. He reposted my post. And I'm like, why did you follow me? He goes, well, I'm big into cigars. I'm always checking the Explore page, and I saw it, and I liked your stuff. So I was trying not to be a fanboy. So I was like, Justin, we got to build a big enough build a little bit of resume before we ask John Reed. So after that, before him, we had John Starks, Eric Coleman, Ruben Studdard.
Nice.
And then I was like, all right, I think we can do this.
Yeah.
And then once we got Ed Reed, we were actually on watching one of his lives, because what he likes to do is he's kind of like a side DJ.
Yeah.
So he gets on live, he smokes a cigar, and he just DJs, and he plays some music. And we were watching him one time, and all of a sudden, everybody starts commenting, oh, King James is in here, LeBron's in here, LeBron's watching, King James is in here. So everybody noticed that LeBron joined his live to watch.
Shit.
So I'm like, you know what? Why don't we... So we've been trying, and it's to no success yet, but it goes back to that 3 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody, right? So I'm like, well, shit, we know Ed Reed. He's a fan of us. We had him on here. Why not ask him, hey, can you put a good word to LeBron, get LeBron on the podcast, right? And it's just kind of...
Does he smoke cigars?
Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah, he posted a few videos when he won the championship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some people give him some slack because he's smoking like a sweet Rocky Patel cigar.
He smoked an Undercrown Shade when he won his last championship.
What was
I like Underground.
They're good.
Yeah.
Well, there was one where he was smoking. It was like the box press Rocky Patel.
Was it like a Java?
And people were busting his chops about
I like
it.
John.
I mean, let me be honest. Like, you're LeBron James. You can smoke whatever the fuck you want, okay?
Yeah,
Like, nobody's going to tell you otherwise.
Agreed,
But
agreed.
all right, so
Well, really quick, you got to settle something because
let's settle it.
Jason, who's going to be watching, and he's one of the sponsors of my show, JSV Capital, shameless plug. He gives like loans to businesses. But anyway, he's a good friend of mine. We smoke cigars probably 2-3 times a week in the backyard. He smokes to the wrapper.
He smokes.
To the wrapper.
Through the wrapper.
No,
to the wrapper
and
ditches it.
extinguishes.
Oh, dude, you're missing.
And I'm trying to teach him the lower third.
Dude, you're missing it. You're missing the best part of the cigar.
Part of the cigar.
That's when the cigar is fully opened up, man.
Jason,
Yes.
what are you doing?
Yes. And the lower third. So I think I said this, and I think I have the same experience now. Is I like the first third and the third on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that's some people have said that the first third is a little harsh.
Okay.
Some people have said that, but I think it's more the first few puffs.
Yeah.
And then once you get into it mellows out, which, kind of backing our cigar, and I'm backing every cigar, is the first couple of puffs you kind of toss.
Yeah.
Because you just lit it. You got to wait for the cigar to warm up. It's like opening a bottle of red wine.
Correct.
That first sip is you kind of have to toss it. Let it breathe. Let it.
Yeah.
Same thing with bourbon. That first sip, we always talk about first sip of bourbon or scotch, or
It's always the rough.
you kind of just put it down. All right, boom. Now get the second sip.
You got to coat your palate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
got.
I agree. I mean, I think you have to smoke all the third. And when you get a cigar some cigars are just, they're even throughout.
Yes.
And that's what they are. There's nothing crazy about it. There's nothing
Correct.
extra. It's just, that's the cigar. Here's the flavor all the way through. But what we found is, what I really like, and I think Eric agrees with me, is that when you get a cigar that really changes from third to third, and the flavors, either they mellow out, other flavors come in, then you get to the third and explodes.
Yeah.
That's because it's like a journey. The journey is not the same.
Complexity.
It really does, and it makes it such an enjoyable experience when you're smoking it, and all of a sudden, wow, I'm getting a new flavor here. Oh, what is that? And then you get to the third, like, oh shit, now it's totally different, right?
Yep.
No, I have a friend. Shout out to my boy Kevin. His favorite, he likes cigars, but then I really took him over the edge where he smokes cigars. But he always talks about the final third. He's like, all right, here comes my favorite part of the cigar. The final third of the cigar. That's my favorite.
Yep.
And he always makes it known. And I've heard that more and more about, more experienced cigar people say they like the third, the last part of the cigar, the third of it.
Yeah.
You gotta
I smoke. So once in a while, I'll smoke online or I'll do a live, and I get a little shit. I smoke to their nub.
All the way down until you can't. Yeah, we actually have I can use it here. This is not what this is for. This is a draw tool, but we have these little pokers, and then when you get down, you can poke it in. And people said, "Oh, that's kind of fruity. Why are you doing that?" I said,
"Hell no.
I don't care because I paid good money for a cigar.
Well, these are good sticks.
If it's a good stick, I'm smoking as long as it's not burning in my mouth.
No doubt,
I'm smoking it all the way down. But so let me ask you. Okay, so we're on the topic of cigars, right? And obviously,
shocker,
right? So we're on the topic of cigars.
Is that what we're talking about here?
And obviously, we're a cigar, podcast. I mean, let's say we bring it back to cigars, right?
Yeah, we don't really. I don't know. Yeah. We don't really label ourselves a cigar podcast because to me, cigar podcast, we're talking about every single day. We're about more bringing people together over
a cigar, right?
Well, that's what they're meant for.
Yeah, and so facto, why we have Tommy here.
But seeing as how we're on the topic of cigars. How did you get into cigar? Do you remember the first cigar you ever smoked? Tell us about that journey, right? Because clearly you said you smoke cigars, I'm guessing pretty much every day. You said you smoke with your buddy 2 to 3 times a week. You smoke with us. You probably smoke, once a day, every other day. So you're a seasoned cigar smoker. You're not your everyday cigar. You're once in a while. You're more of a veteran.
I'm a cigar smoker.
You're a cigar smoker.
My wife hopefully isn't watching. I do essentially smoke cigars. If I don't smoke 7, every day, I do smoke 7 a week. It is
right. So that's what I say. I go, on average, it's about 1 a day. Because, we might we'll smoke 2 tonight. I won't smoke tomorrow. Maybe I'll smoke 1 Friday, 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday, and then I won't do Monday, Tuesday. Yeah. So it's on average, it's 1. So how'd you get into it?
So I always liked cigars and I enjoyed them. My uncle smoked cigars. I always liked the smell of it growing up. But then I had a mentor, John Falavino. Shout out to John. We were in corporate, suits after a long day. We would start smoking cigars at Macanudo Club. He was a member there at the time.
That's a great joint.
Started to develop my profile. I would smoke the Gloria de Cuba whenever I would go there. Beautiful cigar. So he really got me into cigars in probably about my mid-20s. So early 20s, probably a dabbler. Mid-20s on, really starting to smoke. And then 2, the reason why I smoke cigars is, they say poker is about everything but the cards. Cigars are about everything but the cigars. It's about the camaraderie.
Yes.
Right? So, have an experiment, right? Go to somebody and say, hey.
I'm only looking at my phone because you just remind, as you're talking, I'm like, wow, you look just like this guy. And I'm trying to get his name.
You know who you look like? Who I think you look like?
Go ahead.
Bert Kreischer.
Is that the comedian?
Yes.
Yeah,
the machine? I am the machine.
I was picking up my daughter from school one time, and a guy comes up to me and goes, I've been meaning to talk to you. Are you Bert? I got that.
I can see it. I can definitely see it.
I got you guys a little young, but that skating movie where in the 80s, D.B. Sweeney, where he was a hockey player and he trains to be an Olympic skater. It's a little before your time. It's an 80s movie.
No, what's the name of it?
D.B. Sweeney, Cutting Edge.
Cutting Edge. I was going to say Cutting Edge. Yeah.
Got to the point one time I was in an elevator and somebody swore as D.B. Sweeney to the point I just signed it as his name.
That's oh shit. What's the girl's girl's name?
I forget.
That movie. They're trying to do they're trying to do some crazy move where he swings her and he's dropping her every time. Bang, bang,
the
bang.
Sexual tension increases. Oh, his dick boyfriend, and then
I remember watching that too because for people that don't ice skate, they say that ice is almost harder than concrete. Yeah. So I'm watching this movie and she's getting dropped over. And obviously, there's a stunt double. It's not real, but I'm sitting there, the stunt double too. I'm like, fuck, you know how much that's got to hurt?
Yep.
So I got the name of the guy, Alex Jones. You know who Alex Jones?
I get that I'm a slightly skinnier Alex Jones, but not
Alex Jones?
Alex Jones. Yeah, he's actually in court right now.
I'm going to look this up.
But he's what? He's the conspiracy theory guy. He's on Joe Rogan.
I can see that.
I got in trouble. I'm just going to kick that out of my sister's house.
I can see that. Yeah.
Because he brought up the Bohemian Gardens, the conspiracy area in California where there's senators and heads of state and they all go there to a retreat. Is it Bohemian Gardens or Bohemian something or other? And And he was big on that. I kind of deep dived into that, so I followed him a little bit. I don't agree with anything else he says, but that stuff I kind of deep dived with, and I brought that up at the dinner table. My sister's like, "Get out!" But I got Alex Jones once in a while. Yeah,
Alex Jones for sure. I was talking, I'm like, man, this motherfucker. I'm like, I gotta think. I literally just typed in conservative conspiracy theorist in court, and it was like Alex Jones. I'm like, all right, that's who it is.
He's a little chunkier than me. I get like a less.
I think he's a better skin.
Get a better looking version of him.
Yeah.
So let's go back to
You're not yelling and getting red in the face.
Yeah, dude. The first picture I saw, the guy was like freaking tomato.
On, you know whose podcast he was on? What's his name from Atlanta? The rapper. He was in American Gangster.
T.I.?
Yeah, he was on T.I.'s podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's interesting.
T.I.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I feel like him and T.I. are completely opposite.
Yeah, and I think his podcast is like Expeditiously or something, and he was on it. It's a good podcast.
I didn't even realize T.I. I mean, everyone and their mother now has a podcast, but I didn't even know he was on T.I.'s podcast. That's pretty funny.
You know who had my podcast? Hernan Lopez. He started Wondery. So at the time, he just started out. He was from Fox. He was like nobody in that respect. Wondery allegedly just sold out to Amazon for $300 million.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's what you got to get your X Factor and sell it.
I would love that. But
you wouldn't be here, right? You'd be on an island down the bottom.
Podcasting, you guys know, is a labor of love. But once you start to hit a certain critical mass, that's when things start rolling in, right? Because what happens is you like a host. It's a know, like in marketing, the know, like, and trust factor. So if you like a host and then somebody sponsors a podcast, you say, hey, try this, try that. People tend to fuck with you because
they trust you.
They like what you do. So with you guys, what I love is you guys have your brand, which is good because it's almost like a commercial in a way. I know it's a what's that word? What's that word? This Widow Jane's going to my head. Subconscious.
Yeah.
So subconscious, like, wow, these guys are good guys and they have cigars. See, I think I gave you an 8.8 on the cigar, and to be honest, I was at it like an 8.5, but I gave a 0.3 for your guys' story.
I love it.
Because you got to like the story. The men behind the cigar is what makes it happen. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. So, if I went to you and said, hey, let's go talk for an hour in my backyard and let's just chit-chat, they'll look at you weird. Or you said, hey, let's just go to the bar and let's just talk for an hour and a half. They'll look at you weird. No, let's get a cigar.
Yes.
And then it's about the conversation and the camaraderie. And I love the cigar culture. I always say this, and I'll say this on your podcast. I said it on mine. Like, if you go to any cigar bar, especially in the Jersey, New York area, one thing I love is very diverse. It's one of the only areas that I go that I'm probably the minority as a white male there. The bars, the cigar clubs and bars that I go to, you have a lot of Hispanic men, a lot of Cuban guys, and then you have a lot of black gentlemen, and they're just good guys that just want to have cigars.
And now there's a lot of women that are coming in.
Correct. So you have cigars with people that you normally wouldn't meet because you're home or you're busy with work, and now you meet people with different diverse ideas, different diverse backgrounds, and you talk for an hour and a half. Where the hell? I'm telling you,
100%.
Hey man,
100%.
Talk for an hour, look at you weird. No, but you say, hey, let's grab a stick.
No doubt.
It gives you that time to talk, and also it relaxes you. And you really get to share your ideas and exchange ideas with some like-minded people.
It's 100%, man. We say that. We say it all the time.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is, but like off the top of my head, I mean, because I'm biased, but I don't know anything else that brings people more together with any more diverse, nothing in common, people together. I mean, like I always say, you know, a presidential debate should be in a cigar lounge because you know it's. 99% of the time, you're never going to have any kind of discrepancy, drama, argument. You might have different views, but like, it never gets to that point where people are like, I got to get out of here.
One funny idea that I came across. I wanted to do. I have done what I call cigar room confessions. When I was audio only, I'd meet somebody for a cigar, and I would interview them over the cigar. We called it cigar room confessions. Probably did about 4 or 5 of them.
Is it kind of like taxi cab confessions?
But what I wanted to do was the guys would like muffle their voice and they would sign something that we won't say who they are. But the conversations that men have in cigar bars are unparalleled. There's one guy.
Don't we know it, man?
There's one guy I met.
It's like what you say in a cigar bar stays in a cigar bar.
There's one guy I met. I asked him. I said, "Why do you smoke cigars?" He goes. I shouldn't say this, but I'm not going to say his name. He goes, well, I used to fuck around with my wife, and whenever I'd fuck around, I would smoke so I don't smell like her. So when I get home, she would say, go take a shower. Not saying it's right. Do not use it for that. It's not meant for that. I hope my wife's not watching.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Listen, it wasn't you. It wasn't us.
But
it was
yeah.
somebody in the lounge.
Wow. I mean, if you're gonna go behind your back, I mean, that's a
That's-
proper
But
way of doing it, I
but
guess.
the funny part is, he would come home and she'd be like, "Go take a shower."
Yeah.
He's like, "Okay."
100%. I mean, that's someone who calculated that because that's a smart
Correct.
move.
And then he started liking them. Then he started smoking.
That guy's like a
cigars.
mathematician, probably.
Yeah.
So let's go back because we went off the rails
Yeah.
on. So how'd you get into cigars? Right, you said you liked them because your uncle started smoking.
I saw my uncle growing up, like the early 20s, dabbled, mid 20s, spent some time with my mentor. Then I was in sales like you guys are, still am, and did a lot of deal. I probably closed thousands, not thousands, probably hundreds of thousands in deals over cigars because, again, you have that hour and a half, you get to talk, you get to build trust. So I found that as a good vehicle to smoke cigars, and I just enjoy them.
Do you remember the first cigar you ever had? And I say first premium cigar because you could be in high school smoking Swisher Sweets or Backwoods or Al Capone,
I'll give you
right?
a good,
Those aren't cigars.
I'll give you a good and a bad. A good is La Gloria de Cuba is my staple when I go to Macanudo. Probably one of the better premium cigars that I had, especially like at the time, right? But then my buddy's birthday, he raced for Formula One like as a backup driver, and they still made crazy money. And he had a big event in like Times Square. He rented this big suite in Times Square for his birthday. He did like opulent stuff, and I had my first Opus X. It physically laid me out. It laid me out, and I was somewhat of a novice at the time.
Did you have something to eat though? Did you
Yeah,
smoke?
it didn't matter.
I was going to say
it laid me out. I was on the floor like.
Did you like it though, or it just it was too strong?
I enjoyed it, and I'll revisit, but I kind of have a little bit of PTSD from that one. But I have, so I'm a little weird on my profile. So Blueprint is now
a staple.
is in the rotation, 100%
Let's
a
go.
staple, 100%. No, the thing I like about this is, and I think there's three types of cigar smokers. You have your casual, you have your daily like us, then you have your special occasion. This rocks with all three.
Yes, you mentioned that when we were on your show. Yes, and that's
which I like.
And we've gotten a lot of comments for people. I've gotten. Granted, it is family and friends, but I know they don't smoke cigars a lot. And from what I see from our sales, they keep buying the cigar. So, and I've been getting texts like, "Hey, man, no bullshit. I swear on everything. This is my favorite cigar. The cigar is really good."
Correct.
One of the key things is saying, when I smoke this, I don't get that. That pepper, I don't get that like overbearing
pepper
sense.
bomb. You call it
Pepper bomb.
That's what I say. I said it's not a pepper bomb. They go, I can smoke this on the regular. Like,
correct.
I was with a guy at a wedding. He has his family's in the wine business, and he
nice.
doesn't smoke too many cigars. But he's like, I could smoke a cigar every day with a glass of wine. I'm not just saying that because I'm.
I pair wine and cigars often.
Yes.
I think it's probably one of the least less paired or underestimated pairings.
Yeah,
It's
100%,
nice
100%.
red with especially would go excellent. with
100%. We are big in our household. We are big red wine drinkers.
Beautiful.
We probably drink more than we should, but we love. Anytime we open a bottle, it's between my fiance and I. It's gone. Bottle's gone, right? Yeah. But you're right. A lot of people don't. I mean, when you first think of cigars, you think cigars and scotch, cigars and whiskey, right?
Correct.
But cigars and red wine, cigars and coffee. And coffee's got all different types of flavors too, right?
So I think we talked about this on the podcast. My go-to is if I had my druthers, a cigar with cappuccino. For some reason, I just like it with cappuccino.
Our favorite is coffee and a cigar.
I think it's
all day, every day.
Cappuccino, yeah, same thing. But to go on your point, Eric, is my brother-in-law. Shout out to my brother-in-law Murph. He's a cigar smoker, but he's not a big cigar smoker.
Yeah.
He doesn't smoke every single day, right? He's an occasional. When we're with the guys, he'll smoke a cigar. When I gave him the blueprint for the first time at my bachelor party, I had all the blueprints. We gave everybody at my bachelor party a blueprint, and all of them, except for my father, my biological father, doesn't smoke cigars, but we gave him to all of them.
Yeah.
And every single one of them said, "Wow, Justin, this is like no bullshit.
Yeah.
This is phenomenal, right?
Look at the oil on the wrapper.
Oh, it's great." So I went to my dad. I was going around, went to my dad, and my dad doesn't smoke, and he says, "Listen, let me tell you something." He goes, "I don't smoke cigars."
Yeah.
He goes, "But I don't not like the smell of your cigar."
Yeah.
Because it smells pretty good.
Correct.
So to go to my brother-in-law, he smokes occasionally, right?
Yeah.
So he tries the blueprint. Now he sends me pictures all the time, at least once a week.
Yeah.
He's sending me pictures smoking the blueprint. So for my brother-in-law to now like become even more of a cigar smoker and pretty much all he smokes now is blueprints,
Yeah.
that's definitely saying something. Not to toot our own horn here, but from somebody who occasionally, maybe once every couple of weeks, smokes
Correct.
with the guys, to now he's smoking 2 or 3 times a week, and he's smoking blueprints because of it.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my best blueprint experience. I was on I think I mentioned on the podcast when you guys were on. I was on vacation in the Catskills, and
Great spot. So I'm getting married
beautiful
in the
God bless.
Catskills.
Whereabouts?
In Roxbury.
God bless. So I'm there. A little bit of we're in the sticks. Let's be honest.
That's the best place to be. I mean, if you're in the Catskills, you got to be in the middle of nowhere.
Correct. We did the fire thing. We did the s'mores. All the kids were asleep. My wife was either asleep or going to sleep. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to grab a cigar outside. I don't smoke in front of my kids. And
How old are your kids?
I have 4. I have 2 from previous marriage, 12 and 9. Then 2 and 3 months.
Okay, so when they're 8, when they're 16, you play, hey.
Oh, my wife.
Yeah.
When he turns 16, we're smoking. He's like, hell no. I'm like, well, I don't care.
Let me learn you.
18 is allowed, but really
Let me
16.
learn you something.
But really 16. But nevertheless, just on vacation is time to recharge, to reboot, that kind of stuff. So I just went out by myself and said, babe, I'm going to go outside. Had a blueprint. The fire was still going. And it was like, I call it my pensive smoke, where I just had a cigar alone with my thoughts, thinking my next business move, thinking my next idea, thinking about what I'm doing. And it just allowed me to relax and be me. Like Steve Harvey said, like, I'm not, even if I live less, I'm going to have that cigar every day because that's my time.
It's yoga to him.
And that's
Smoking is yoga.
It's a nice pensive cigar as well.
Well, that's like, again, I always think there's really, like cigars, there's kind of 2, what I think, the reasons why I smoke cigars. There's one where we talked about it. It's the camaraderie of a cigar. A cigar is more than just the act of... Nice.
Don't hurry. We don't have insurance. Don't burn
The
us.
cigar is more than just the act of smoking a cigar, right? It's camaraderie, being around people just like we're doing right now. But then the other side of it is being at one with your own thoughts.
Correct.
Right? Both of them, you're just the physical act is you're lighting up a cigar and you're smoking tobacco. However, one, you're being around people, you're conversing, you're having great conversations, you're meeting people.
Correct.
On the other side, you're just by yourself.
Yep.
But it's where you can reflect on things that you've done and visualize things that are coming in the future.
Exactly.
So both of them are blessings, and it's all from this one thing that...
We all have in common.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Off topic of cigars.
Yes.
Who was your favorite guest that you interviewed?
Ooh, great.
As we're talking, I'm like, yeah.
So I'm going to add to... I'm going to do a part B.
Okay.
So Eric, who's your favorite guest that you've interviewed, and who is somebody that you have yet to interview but are dying to interview?
Okay. So best guess. Okay. So I got a few. Okay. So D. Snider, I have a friend of mine who's like knows a lot of celebrities, and D. Client's a friend. D. Snider's a friend at this point, but he's also a client. We did his website, all that kind of stuff, and we became friendly. And I said, "Hey, do me a favor, come on the show." You know, he had like, I'll do anything for him. He's very, very good to me. So he came on the show. We had a great show. So D was one of my favorite ones. Sammy, I loved. It's interesting because I got a lot of crap for his interview because Armchair MBA is about looking at the business end of the organized crime. And I asked him like a lot of business-centric questions. Some loved it.
They wanted to hear the stories of...
What question am I going to ask him that he wasn't asked 1,000 times?
Right. How are you going to make your show unique from everybody else?
Correct. So I felt for the business aspect, he nailed it. I mean, at the end of the day, he was the number 2 guy in a $500 million organization back then.
Yeah.
So Sammy, D. Snider, obviously Gary V. Jeff Hoffman just really sticks with me. Well, a fun one was I had Jared Glant. You might know Grant Cardone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I was like,
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually heard a commercial of Grant Cardone on Sirius XM today. I'm like, oh, Grant Cardone now is on Sirius XM. He's officially.
We got to get him on a podcast too because he's a big cigar smoker. He always posts his little reels of him, whatever his tip of the day is, and
big cigar smoker. So I had Jared on again. I knew what happened was interesting enough is I went to him early on and he said no because he goes, please. His assistant said, when you're done with your first 100 shows or whatever, then come to us. Which is actually about right. You know this. Like in the first show, 17 views, 20.
Yeah, we think the average podcast stops after 13 episodes.
Yeah. So I had Jared on. He jumped on. It was audio. Jumped on halfway through and like kind of took over the podcast. I was like, shit.
Grant Cardone did? Wow.
I was interviewing Jared Glant as number 2. And so I was happy with him. So kind of Jared Grant, D. Snider, Sammy the Bull, and then now Pablo Escobar's wife, Lydia Isabella. So she does not speak English, right? And my Spanish is okay. My wife is fluent. She's from Ecuador. So I would ask a question in English, and then my wife would ask her in Spanish, and I understand Spanish pretty well. And just like listen to her answers, everything. Pablo Escobar's wife.
Yeah,
what were some of the things she was saying? I mean,
like she was saying like he was actually a lot more. I know this is crazy, but a lot more social minded than people let him. Like he would buy hospitals, build hospitals in areas, buildings for poor people.
So he did a lot of good things with the bad money.
Yeah, so I'm listening to his son's book now, and he says he had two hands. He'll show you, he'll give, but with the other hand, he has no problem showing you, he will take just as easily, which is very apropos. So those are some of my favorite guests.
Wow. Now, who is a guest that you haven't had but you're dying to have on the show?
Mark Cuban, I will get. I will get.
Mark his words right here. You heard on the Burnout podcast. He will have Mark Cuban.
Yeah, he responds to me, and it's no. And I always count. I said this is the 37th time I asked, but
it's a numbers game, maybe.
It is. Just keep asking. Eventually, they're going to be tired of you asking. Like, fine, I'll do it.
Because I don't. It's not because of ego. But if I ask somebody like who's pretty big, and it's not a lot, but if I ask somebody who's pretty big, and they say no, I don't ask again. Not out of ego, I just don't want to keep bothering them.
Yeah.
Al Sharpton.
Okay.
So Al Sharpton, I'm at a Macanudo Club.
Yeah, he's a big
cigar guy.
He used to be at Havana Room. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm there. Well, really quick. So when I so pissed. So Jordan Belfort I did in person, right? And I met him at Macanudo Club. First thing he says when he walks in, he goes, "Yeah, I had a piece of the top of the sixes of the Havana Club."
That's what Jordan said?
Yeah, I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, because he owned it or sold it or something. I said, really? And I was so excited to have a cigar with Jordan Belfort. Somebody in his entourage was pregnant, so she couldn't come in.
Oh.
So we went to the Low Hotel next door. We just sat down in the middle. My wife's filming. The general manager, my wife's OG, the general manager's like, you can't film in here. She's like, I don't care.
She's like, I'm filming. Sue me later.
Audio. She's doing video.
Jordan will pick up the tab. Sue me later.
She lost the video.
She lost it?
Something happened. I don't know.
But you got the audio.
Audio, yeah. We posted it. So again, one of my favorites. But nevertheless, one more. Pepe at Epizote. You remember Narcos 2, the second season?
Yeah.
The barbershop scene. He goes, I'll give you 10 seconds to comply. He goes 10, 9, 8, 7. That's Pepe. I had him on my podcast. We met at Macanudo. We went upstate for 4 hours. I had like 4 cigars with the guy.
Holy hell. Yeah. 4 cigars for 4 hours.
But who else do I want? Aside from Mark Cuban, I'm just trying to think. Somebody that I would die to have on. It's a good one. I got to think for a second.
You got to think of somebody who... Because, I mean, I know yours is not, based on cigars, right? But somebody who's built something so magnificent from nothing, from essentially nothing, right? Because you got a lot of guys that, they say they're self-made. Okay, I'm self-made, but I had,
Correct.
Like, I always go over Dodgeball. There's that movie Dodgeball with White Goodman. He's like, I built this temple with nothing but some can-do attitude and some elbow grease. And yes, a large inheritance from my father, right?
I'd love to have honors. It never happened. Warren Buffett.
Yes.
Just the simplicity. If you ever watch CNBC, he only interviews with one woman.
That guy is...
He buys like McDonald's coffee or something.
Every day.
It's funny because he makes more money on dividends from a company that he owns than some of the companies make.
Correct.
Like for instance, Coke and McDonald's. Okay, he makes more money on dividends in a year than than the entire state of New York McDonald's makes. It's like astronomical, right? Crazy. So the guy, I would love to have. He doesn't smoke cigars, I don't think, but I would love to. I mean, just to sit with him because his brain. I mean,
but there are some cigar guys. So I was in touch with David Savona. He's Marty Schenken's right-hand guy.
Yeah, I know Marty Schenken.
I would like to have Marty Schenken on. Love to have him on. But my strategy is I want to have David on first. I'm in contact with him because one of our writers went to go work for them.
He has. Doesn't he have? Is he Wine Spectator too?
Wine Spectator. I think like whiskey. Something.
Yeah, he's got a bunch.
And then Cigar Aficionado, of course. And I knew a girl that worked for them, and she would sneak cigars every so often for me when she worked for them. So with Marty, I never tried to have on yet. But what happened was one of our writers went to go work for David Savona, and he reached out to our editor. And my editor's like, oh, yeah, David Savona reached out. I think he's the executive editor at Cigar Aficionado. I'm like, fucking let's get him on.
Oh, yeah.
So he has a lot of deadlines, and he's working, but he's supposed to come on. And then I'm in touch with Steve Sacca as well.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So in the cigar world, those are two guys I'd love to have on.
I think we would. I mean, to have Shankman on is or Marvin Shanken on from that'd be a great one. Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone
They both have boxes at Macanudo.
Yeah, those would be. That would be That would be.
My father-in-law.
Giuliani would be good too.
Giuliani would be great.
Giuliani would be good.
My father-in-law is the biggest Sylvester Stallone fan, so he always will DM like random actors.
This is random, but there's a guy. So I when I launched my book in 2013, I flew up. He was in Florida at the time. What's the fighter? God, this is going to my head, man. Water break. The fighter. What's his name?
UFC. Conor McGregor.
No, the Irish fighter that's been.
UFC or boxing?
No, that boxing that fought Torrigati.
Oh,
I'm gonna draw a blank.
Yeah, Peace Man.
Oh my god! But hold on, the fighter, the movie, The Fighter.
Okay,
yeah. The Irish guy, Mickey Ward.
Yes.
So
okay.
let's edit
Yes.
this. Okay. So I flew Mickey Ward to my event, and I launched my book. It was a paid appearance. Admittedly, I flew him up. So he came, and we're talking. Right. And next thing you know, this guy Nicky comes. He goes, "Oh, I know Mickey," and he came to our event. This guy Nicky is from Jersey. He's actually the guy who set up this Stallone shop and works directly with Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone gifted him the motorcycle, and he has it in his garage.
No shit.
Literally in Beverly Hills, in his living room.
Wow.
So this kid Nicky is Agent, I think Agent Nicky NYC or Agent Nicky on Instagram. He's a Jersey guy who flew up through the ranks, works with Stallone, and has his actual motorcycle in his.
Wow.
So I want to interview him as well.
Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. So my father-in-law, he'll DM he used to. I don't know if you remember Armando Montalongo. He was on the show.
Big real estate guy.
Investor.
Oh yes. He
had the show flip.
Yes.
He used to flip houses. So
Portuguese guy.
I think
he's Portuguese.
Could be.
I think he's Spanish.
Okay.
But he's down in Texas anyway. Yeah. My father-in-law will DM all these different celebrities and be like, "Hey, you gotta go on my son-in-law's podcast." So
awesome.
We got Armando Montalongo from him, but Sylvester Stallone, he'd be like, "Hey, I DM Sylvester Stallone all the time." He's like, "Now I'm talking to his daughter, and she responds back, and he's like, she's really busy, this and that." He's like, "But I'm gonna get him on for you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey, keep at it.
You never know.
Never know. Absolutely, that's the power of social media.
It is,
sure.
man. Well, that's why I said social media is a blessing and a curse depending on how you use it.
Correct.
And we talk about all the time. Whereas if we didn't have a show or a brand that we're promoting,
correct.
Yeah.
We might be on social media, but we wouldn't be posting nearly as much. I would probably just go on there just to see sports highlights and whatever.
Correct.
But when you use it as a tool, you can reach out. I mean, we got people that we have a listener in every single continent except for Antarctica. Yeah. But we have a listener. We have people listening in Kenya. We have people listening in Morocco, people listening in China, in Russia. I get it all the time. It says, "Oh, somebody's on your website," and it shows where it's from.
Saudi Arabia.
I go, "What?" It's just incredible, and it's all from social media.
Yep. But you know what's crazy about podcasting and those people watching and buy some blueprints. I'll tell you why. Even if you give them as a gift, because the economics, so for example, we're all in sales, right? We're all in business. Podcasting is such poor economics. Think about it, right? How much do you make per episode? It's a few $100 at best if you count cigar sales or sponsorship or
if that,
right?
100%.
But so for example,
and that's if you get some advertising or something, right?
Correct. So now I'll be up front. I only paid for 3 guests. They asked for a fee. I paid the fee. I don't want to get into it now. Sammy, I did give something to Escobar's wife and one other one, but out of 450 interviews. So I don't pay a lot for guests. But what I'll do is I'll buy a bottle of wine, a box of wine, I'll buy a book, give a book away. So what I'll do is I'll spend $1,000 on an episode or boost it, but I make $10.
Yeah.
Right? But I do it because I care about building the brand. Right? So I'm here in front of you guys. I never would have known you guys if I didn't see you guys and have you on my show. So to me, that's more valuable building up that network right now, even though, like, you guys know I'm speaking to the lion on this one, the economics are so poor on podcasting, but when you build up that goodwill, over time you want to cash in goodwill, as you know, and you want to monetize it eventually. But it's a labor of love, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's like you're building up a brand. So when you get to a point where, like, for instance, with our cigar, the Blueprint, right? If we would have released the Blueprint 3 years ago when we just started the podcast, it would not nearly be as successful as it is now.
Correct.
After we built a brand.
Correct.
Where collectively we have almost 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Correct.
And we're getting thousands of listens. We're getting thousands of plays, right? We built up this brand to release a product.
Correct.
And now the product goes well because everybody's listening. They go, oh, shit, we like you said, we like those guys. We trust those guys.
Correct.
We value their opinion. We love their show. They release something, we're going to go buy it. So you just continue, like you said, you spend the money to build up the show and to build up the brand. So then now when you want to do something that you can monetize it, if it's a product, if it's an event, a service, an advertisement, whatever it is, you have this legitimate brand.
Yeah.
Correct.
And now you can utilize it.
Well, so if you follow the Jeff Bezos model, that's another one. I love Jeff Bezos.
That would be a great one. He started. You see the picture of him when he started Amazon?
Yeah.
Where he literally, like, him in some bullshit like Mac with a sign that says like written up
Amazon books or something.
Yep. So you good call on the books. So there's a 3-step process that he took, right? And the third is the hardest. But the first is he said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sell books. Why were they easy? Because it was like wine. There's a million different books. Small, easy to ship. So what he did was he sold books because they were easy to send out, and they were there for one purpose, to build up a base, right? Then as he built up the base, which you guys are doing now, building up an audience, then the second step is to sell into the audience. Okay, great. I use the books. Now I have an audience. Let me sell them electronics. Because, again, it's small, but better.
If they bought some books from me, maybe they'll buy electronics.
Correct.
Yep.
So then he kept doing that. And then the third part of the equation is, which is the hardest part, critical mass. That's when you just hockey stick.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing it right. Just keep doing the podcast, have a good time, have some Widow Jane, have a nice Blueprint. Then over time, as you build up, I think you almost organically make up one day for like 35 orders. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Because that many people are now listening and they trust you and they buy your brand. I like the fact that you have a woven in brand into the podcast, which makes you a little less reliant on sponsorship, because sponsorship is tough for podcasting.
It is. I mean, we have 5 sponsors currently, but
God bless.
it's we can talk about it here. We don't really get paid.
Yeah, it's affiliate
for every. It's more so they sponsor the show. We give them some advertisement, and they have given us discount codes
stuff in kind
that we can then promote to our people that are members of our podcast. Like, hey, listen, you want to be a member? We'll get you discount codes.
But that
people.
builds goodwill. And when you're big enough, I'm telling you, when you're big enough, a tequila company or bourbon company is going to approach you with a budget.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? No, we don't want a contingent. We want to advertise, and that'll happen.
Yeah, it has happened. We're actually in the works right now of a nice deal. A 5-figure deal, let's call it.
God bless.
That for advertising and content creation and stuff. We're not going to talk about who it is, but you're right. It's come to a point where now somebody says, "Hey, listen," and we had the
hold on.
He's getting smoke in his eye.
Would it be an episode?
Whatever the term is, but we basically said, listen, no, we know who we are. Correct. We have a decent following,
correct,
and this is going to be the number. And they were like, well, we're going to do this number. I said, okay, we'll meet a little bit of negotiation, right? And it was a significant number, but you're right. It's just and it takes time.
I'm going to give some advice. So, and you may be doing this, you may not. One thing I didn't do earlier on that I do now is if let's just say I'm trying to have somebody bigger on the show, right? We'll get to the sponsorship in a second. Just have somebody bigger on the show. And again, I don't pay guests directly, but there's some cost. Again, you buy a book giveaway.
Yeah.
It costs you $300 for 10 books. You buy some cases of wine, whatever that is.
Like you do with us. You bought a box of blueprints.
I love them.
Thank you.
I love them. So one thing I learned is that I do now is I'll put some of the sponsorship money that I get, or if I don't have sponsorship money, I'll dig into my pocket and I'll actually boost it on YouTube or boost it on like an Outbrain, blog amplifier, And although it's paid views, I was like, thought it was like dirty. Like, you're buying views. No, like you're just advertising.
No, that's what you
like
do. You
any other
advertise.
business.
Yeah, you advertise.
Yeah, and I know what's interesting is I was in like a space, and I'm kind of getting out of it, where there was a bunch of podcasters all kind of started around the same time. And I had one podcast, 2 podcasts do really well because I did buy advertisement. I got shit for it. I'm a fraud. I'm buying views. And I'm like, wait a second. What business doesn't advertise?
Yeah, you have to.
And for some weird reason, podcasters, and you guys, it's good that you guys are over it, but some podcasters are weird about advertising their podcast. I'm not anymore. I used to.
Yeah, we find
weird though. Like,
I don't get people.
They don't have the resources we have.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, you're doing that, or you're not organic.
But that's part of business. Like any business, if you want to build the business, you have to advertise,
100%.
right? The challenge that we find is because it's tobacco, you can't really boost it on a lot of things. So it's
all self promotion.
However, you can. So we can pay for advertisements on other platforms, right?
Correct,
so, for instance, Cigar Aficionado.
Correct.
And we've sent an email. We've sent a second email. We're trying to, if we can get a page in Cigar Aficionado,
like on a digital ad or something,
or digital ad, or even a paper ad, because they have the biggest cigar magazine on the planet. So we can pay for that, but we can't boost Instagram or boost Facebook because
that's the rub, right?
That's the challenge.
Yeah, correct. But the good thing what you guys are doing is you're building your own brands or the brand for the podcast by doing your shorts. I literally send like my shorts to like Jason and like this guy Michael. Every one of you guys do. Like when I'm at a party and nobody smokes, all right, I gotta go.
Yeah,
I send all that shit, and that's all brand awareness.
Yeah.
You know, still, it's a time versus money proposition, right? You either sit there and you hump out like 20 reels, or you spend $500 on advertising, or both, right? But that's the key, to find that mixture of paid advertising. Have you guys got any press yet? Where people came to want to do any press on you guys yet? Because if not, they will.
Yes, and they've done it for individual. Yeah. We've had a couple of sites that wanted to do some articles on us. He had one, I had one.
Yeah. You've been asking me on a few podcasts.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was going to get at, is another way of advertising, and it's not so much paid advertising. It's, hey, just like what we did here.
Come on.
I'm going to be on your podcast, you be on our podcast.
Correct.
So now you have a whole different demographic, that our audience that is listening, right?
Correct.
And we have a whole different one. So now people are going
to...
That's how people that might smoke cigars that love business podcasts,
Correct.
He's got go listen to him. People that are watching you that smoke cigars, which... probably at least half of the people you interviewed probably smoke cigars. They go, hey, I'm going to go check out their podcast.
Correct.
So you can do that type of advertising too. And it is advertising.
Correct.
You're just not paying for it.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to go about it.
They call that earned media. Earned media is when somebody reaches out to exactly that. I reach out to you guys. I love your vibe. I was hoping to come on, but I wasn't expecting it. But it was a nice little bonus. My point being is that's how you grow. That's a nice thing. But that's where the podcasting space gets weird, though, because I've had like some pretty good podcasters or some people on. I'm like, great, I'd love to come on your show. And some people don't always reciprocate. The other little dirty secret is the bigger the guest, the less they promote it.
Really? Okay.
Celebrities, like bigger, I don't know, A-plus celebrities, but the bigger people I've had who have big followings, a lot of them didn't share on their social media.
We'll have to look back and see. It's funny because I can see that sometimes the fame gets to their head, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do you a favor by coming on your podcast."
Correct. So, and you want me to promote it, or get blocked by a PR person. So, what I do now is, one of my learning is, generally the bigger guests have a separate social media person. So I'll say, "Hey, who runs your social media?"
Yeah.
And I'll go to them and say, "Can you share?"
And that's a fun fact is for people that are listening or watching is you think all those social media people that are the big wigs, like that have millions of followers, when you DM them or you're not. They don't run their page.
Correct.
Yeah.
They are not. They probably have teams.
Small percentage does.
That run their page.
A lot of it, a lot of the guests that we've had was through social media, and it was talking to directly the person.
Who shared? I don't want to say who didn't share. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Who shared the podcast they were on with you guys where it got a lot of traffic and did pretty well? Anybody?
Almost every.
Yeah, pretty much every.
shared it. We had Starter. He shared it. Eric Coleman.
Everybody
Fred
did.
Robbins.
Everybody did. I think.
The only person I think that I don't remember sharing it maybe was John Starks. Yeah. But again, he doesn't handle his stuff.
And to be quite honest, he doesn't really have a big social media presence.
And he doesn't. He's more to himself.
But he's a good name for our generation.
Yeah.
When he was on, I was just to joke around. when he was on, it took him a little while to heat up. But when he was on, he was on.
Yeah, and it's funny because he was completely different. I wasn't expecting that who he was on the court versus who he was off the court are two completely different people. Because a lot of people know him from what, because they don't talk to him. They see him playing.
Correct.
And they know him as this fiery, energetic, in-your-face kind of guy.
Very soft-spoken.
But when he was so soft-spoken.
Very, like, laid back.
Cool as a cucumber.
Plays golf every day. You know, he's like...
He's actually a very good golfer, yeah.
Really good golfer.
And you guys golf, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
I like to think so.
I'm
Justin's a little better than me, but... You know,
I'm a big golfer, yeah. I'm
I
a big
aim
golfer.
to hit the ball straight, and that's about it.
I've become more of a golfer in the last couple of years. It's funny because they always talk about, I see these memes all the time. It says, to all the ex-college athletes, how's your golf game doing? And it's so true because I was an ex-college. I know a lot of ex-college athletes that have become.
What did you play?
I played basketball.
Nice.
But now, last couple of years, I've gotten really into golf where I'm playing 2 to 3 times a week because golf is another thing like cigars where you can do a lot of business deals on the golf course. Because if you look at a lot of people hear that you're, especially, big executives, if they hear that you're good at golf, like, I want to play with you.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, so my podcast is a little weird where I do cover a lot of organized crime stuff, right? I don't share it with a lot of my friends and family, believe it or not.
Really?
Because, like, being an Italian, it's like, like...
Well, like you said, when you first got here, your mom was kind of like ixnay on the odd may, right?
So my sisters don't watch it. My brother doesn't watch it. My cousins don't watch it. Because they're like, well, why you, like, dealing with these mobsters and these idiots, right? In their mind, right? But what I'm trying to do, and you guys will see, is I'll do like a mobster, right? It'll do really well, right? But then I'll do like a really like big business person that's like a big deal to us.
It tanks.
Does like 200 views.
Yeah,
it's wild. It's wild. Yeah. I mean, there's something to say about the mafia world on social media because by far, Billy Cotolo Jr. has been the best video and podcast. Best video podcast on YouTube. There's actually more downloads from other guests that we've had in other episodes, but on YouTube, Billy Cotolo Jr. was definitely the biggest. It's like almost, I think it's over 20,000 views.
And a lot of the female influencers that we have. And I noticed this kind of goes to just on social media in general, females get way more attention than males.
Naturally.
Okay, in pretty much every category. Yeah. Okay, and that's just because sex sells.
Correct.
You may not like it, but that's the truth. Okay.
Correct.
So when we had female cigar and call them influencers with a substantial following on Instagram,
correct,
we had them on the podcast. Those episodes did really well because they would post them on their thing, and everybody wants to see the female cigar smoker because she's hot and sexy and she's smoking a cigar. And maybe it's some of the pervs out there. I just want to watch them because she's got tits, right? But that's just
name of the game.
That's the name of the game, right? So we did find that a lot of the female smokers did really well.
Yeah.
But you're right. Some of the ones we've had, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great episode.
Yeah.
And it kind of like when we had John Starks. It didn't really do that well. And John Starks is a big basketball guy. We had him in person.
We thought we were going to blow up.
It was a different venue, right? We weren't here. It wasn't Zoom. It was at
you
his.
Respecting the Sun, the Moon, and the Stars.
And
meanwhile, the local gardener you had on it. Like,
and there's other interviews that we have that aren't females. And, it was a good guest. But it ended up being a great episode. And like, we had the owner's son of LFD, Tony Gomez.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And
those are too strong for me.
And that was a great episode.
And that was one of the highest downloaded podcasts and one of the most viewed. But again, we just were interested in him because it's like, hey, you're the owner's son of LFD. You're the helm in a few years. And we thought it was interesting, and then ended up being a really successful podcast. So you can never judge.
And one other thing about podcasting is funny too, where you guys are big on Instagram. I found personally it's hard to cross platforms. So if you're big on Instagram, right, or have a following on Instagram, I've had a hard time getting people to cross over to YouTube, or vice versa. Oh, I have my YouTube. I'll check out my iTunes. Crossover is not really there.
We noticed a big. There's a higher. I think there's a higher success rate for us just on the audio. Like,
so what do you do?
Take the rubber off.
Okay.
And then you can just poke your cigar like
that. There you go. Look at that. Cigar poker, baby. Yeah, we've noticed there's a higher success rate. And
now,
fancy. Now you can get that last.
Now you're really in the game.
One of these.
Now you look like Corello. Those things around me was always Corello DeVille.
Corello DeVille.
Should we have those little?
Can I have another splash? Do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Otherwise, I'll forget everything. But I have a little bit more.
But we've noticed on just on the audio version, that's where more of the traction and growth is. I think we told you last time. Like this time last year, we were like, I just looked at it the other day. We were like 1,300 downloads a month last summer.
Wow.
Now we're over 5,000.
That's awesome.
And I mean, I can't really pinpoint what the growth is. I do think it's a big part of just being consistent and then just being on Instagram.
You should put them on IGTV too. Because I think IGTV get an hour, right?
I think so. Yeah. I remember we tried doing a live last time. We didn't have enough subscribers, but now they
on YouTube. Yeah.
On YouTube, but they did. Oh, IGTV. Yeah, you can do IGTV.
I'll tell you why. So
that might be a good idea. Do the whole podcast on there.
Well, I'll tell you why. So you guys have a good visual platform now, right? So obviously there's audio, which is the iTunes and the rest that are associated. Your number one visual is YouTube, right? Because you guys are not just trying to monetize on YouTube, you're monetizing other ways. You need to be wherever there's video. I would pop it on IGTV. I would throw it on Vimeo too.
We were talking about that too, because Vimeo and Rumble are the two biggest under YouTube.
Correct.
And there's no
censorship
Correct. There. You can put whatever you want.
A lot more flexibility.
I looked into Rumble a little bit. There are a few, like I typed in cigar on Rumble, and there's a few videos there, but they're only 20 views, 50. So there's nothing there that's really blown up yet. So I think that
might be,
if we can get on there
you,
and say, hey, listen, check us out on Rumble too.
We'll have to schedule a day where for like 8 hours we're just uploading all the episodes.
Well, I need to find this. I do have I will say this. I use Libsyn for the podcasting. So I upload my audio everywhere. I do upload my audio to YouTube as well. So it comes up as audio on YouTube.
You just put like a graphic?
On a separate, a graphic on a separate. And then I have a visual. So generally, the audio on YouTube doesn't really pop off, but if I have one that does really well on visual, the audio will do well on YouTube as well.
Okay.
So somebody wouldn't have gotten, so I do that.
Yeah.
But again, it's all how you monetize. Because you guys are not worried about like super chats and monetizing on YouTube, I would just say, hey, where can I put video? And I would place it IGTV, Vimeo, YouTube, Rumble, and that aggregate number along with your iTunes and Spotify, then you should show your sponsors, hey, this is what we're doing.
Because that's one thing that we definitely do is we say, because when we present the statistics to any advertiser, we include our, not just the Burn Down podcast itself, but our personal thing. Because I'm like, listen, we have a video, or if we talk about your product on our show, we're going to talk about it on the video version on YouTube.
Correct.
We're going to talk about it on the 3, or is it 4? We have 4 now with Amazon. The 4 audio versions. You have iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Amazon.
Correct.
So you have those 4. You're going to put it on the Burn Down Instagram, but then we're also going to share it on our personal Instagrams,
Correct.
which have which when we post a reel on there, we have tens of thousands of views on the reel. So all of that comes into the thing. You can even do
like let's say there's a good sponsor that's willing to pay the freight. You can do reels specifically just for that brand.
Yeah, of course.
I love it.
Whew. So we are hour and 36, man.
All right.
Wow.
Is this the time? I think this is the time.
It is time to close.
I think this is the time.
We're getting to the end of the cigar. We're getting to the end of the bourbon. I think it's a hell of a good conversation with Tommy.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you coming on here, brother. But
my pleasure, man.
Before we head out, this is your time to plug everything.
Yeah.
This is time to give you the red carpet and just say where people can find you, any new projects.
Absolutely.
The floor is yours.
So I do a lot of stuff, but I guess probably the most applicable is check out the Armchair MBA on wherever you listen to your podcast and or YouTube, probably the biggest. And also, we're still running a New Theory podcast as well. That's strictly business. And I'm just happy to be here. It's an honor and privilege.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us, Tom. Thank you very much to you guys for listening and for watching. Like Tom said, check them out, Armchair MBA. Check out the New Theory. If you'd like to check out us, burnoutpodcast.com. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified every time we drop a new video. Check out the website, burnoutpodcast.com. Become a member. It's $5 a month. You get exclusive access to 5 partnering stores. You get entered in monthly members-only giveaways. And check out the Blueprint we smoked today, rated 88 by Tommy himself. You get a 15% off if you're a member. So check us out, burnoutpodcast.com. Tom, thank you so much for joining us here.
Cheers, guys.
And Eric,
Cheers. Chin chin. Salud.
Salud.